Genesis 18 opens with one of the most arresting sentences in the whole of the Torah. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. And then, in the very next verse, without pausing to explain how the first sentence connects to the second, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. Who are these men? The text has told us that the Lord appeared, and then the 3 men appear. Are they the Lord? Are they angels? Are they human travelers? The story never quite resolves this ambiguity, and I think the ambiguity is the point. Because what happens next is one of the most beautiful acts in the entire Bible, and Carl Jung, who spent his career thinking about what arrives at the thresholds of the self when we are least expecting it, has something extraordinary to say about it. Abraham sees the 3 strangers. He is 99 years old. He's been waiting a long time, waiting for the fulfillment of the promise God made him decades ago, that he would be the father of a great nation. He has waited so long that he and his wife Sarah, who is also elderly, had effectively given up on the direct fulfillment of the promise. And now he is sitting at the door of his tent in the midday heat, which in that climate means that he is sitting still, doing nothing, simply present. And he sees them. The text says he ran to meet them. He bowed to the ground. He said, "My lords, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, and you may refresh yourself, and after that you may pass on." He runs, he bows, he offers water and shade and rest. And then, because what he called a morsel of bread and what he actually provides are considerably different, he rushes to Sarah and asks her to make some cakes from fine flour. He runs to his herd and takes a calf, tender and good, and gives it to a servant who prepares it quickly. He brings curds and milk and the calf and sets it before the visitors and stands by them under the tree while they eat. The hospitality is lavish. It is immediate. It is given before Abraham knows who these strangers are or what they want. He does not wait for their credentials. He runs. Jung was deeply interested in the archetype of the stranger, the unknown figure who arrives at the threshold bearing what cannot be anticipated. He wrote about this in several contexts, drawing on the rich mythology that surrounds the figure of the divine disguised as the ordinary, gods who travel incognito, the sacred carried in the apparently mundane. The Greek tradition is full of this. Zeus and Hermes disguised as travelers, testing the hospitality of mortals. The Norse Odin wanders in human form. The Hindu tradition has its divine teachers arriving unexpectedly. And here in Genesis, the Lord appears to Abraham in the form of 3 men who are dusty from the road and need water for their feet. Jung would say, the stranger at the threshold is one of the most consistent and psychologically significant archetypes in the history of human symbolic expression. And what makes this archetype so powerful, what makes it recur so insistently across cultures, is that it encodes something true about where transformation comes from. Transformation does not, in Jung's experience and in his clinical observation, come from within the existing structure of the self. It comes from the outside, from the unexpected, the unscheduled, the stranger who arrives when you are sitting still in the heat of the day. The ego cannot generate its own breakthrough. The new thing must come in, often in disguise, often unannounced. And the question the archetype poses is always the same. Will you receive it? Abraham runs. He bows. He washes feet. He feeds. He stands under the tree while they eat, not eating with them, not asserting his own needs, but simply present, available, and attending. This quality of attention, this complete orientation towards the stranger's well-being, is what Jung would call a receptive consciousness, a state of openness that is distinct from the purposeful, directed, goal-oriented consciousness of everyday life. In everyday life, we filter our experience heavily. We attend to what is useful, what is relevant to our current concerns, what fits our existing categories. We pass most of the world by. But Abraham, sitting at the door of his tent in the heat of the day, is in a different mode. He is not filtering, he is simply present. And so when something arrives that is not obviously useful, not obviously expected, not carrying credentials, he runs to meet it. Jung believed that this kind of receptive consciousness was a prerequisite for the most significant psychological and spiritual experiences. The encounter with the self, with the deep center of the psyche, does not typically arrive through directed efforts. It arrives in the gaps, in the moments of stillness, in the pauses between activities. The man sitting at the tent door in the midday heat, doing nothing in particular, sees what the man who is busy would have missed. The announcement the strangers bring is the announcement that has been awaited for decades. One of them says, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" Abraham says, "She is in the tent." And the visitor says, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." Sarah is listening at the tent entrance. She laughs. She laughs because she is old, and Abraham is old, and the promise is old, and the body has long since stopped being able to do what the promise requires. And the visitor says, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" The laughter of Sarah is the laugh of someone who has been waiting so long that expectation has curled around into something rueful and half despairing. She laughs not with joy, but with the weariness of hope that has been sustained too long without result. It is a very human laugh, an honest one. And the response, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" is not a rebuke exactly. It is the stranger's gift, the restoration of the possibility that has been progressively narrowed by the years. What age and experience have made unthinkable, the arrival of the unexpected reopens. Jung would read Sarah's laugh with sympathy because the ego, when it has waited long enough, develops a protective skepticism about the promises of the unconscious. The new thing is being announced before and hasn't arrived. The transformation has been felt to be imminent and has receded. And the self learns, after enough of these cycles, to protect itself from the hurt of another disappointment by laughing, by not quite believing. But the stranger, arriving in the unexpected moment, does not accept the skepticism as final. He says, "I will return," and he does. There's a detail I want to return to. The text says in its opening verse that the Lord appeared to Abraham. But the story that follows is not a vision or a direct divine encounter in the manner of, say, the burning bush or Sinai. It is three men sitting under a tree eating veal and cakes and curds. The rabbis noticed this. They called it the divine presence concealed in the ordinary. The Lord appeared, and what Abraham saw was three travelers who needed water. This is, in Jung's framework, one of the most important movements in the whole biblical theology of encounter. The divine is not only in the spectacular, the fire, the earth, the still small voice. The divine is also in the stranger who arrives dusty at noon, who needs his feet washed, who will eat the meal you have run to prepare. The question is not whether the divine is present in the ordinary. The question is whether you are the kind of person who runs towards the ordinary stranger, whether your receptivity, your hospitality, your willingness to attend is such that the ordinary stranger can, when he is so, reveal himself as carrying something extraordinary. Abraham ran. That is the whole answer to the question.